Okay.
I'm sharing.
I'm looking to see.
Okay, well, thank you guys so much for joining us today on Under the Hood. Today, I have the honor of having as guests one of my best friends, my oldest best friends. Not that you're old, Jeff, but one of my longest best. Not that you're long, but you know what I'm saying. My best friends for the longest amount of time. I guess he's hung in there. He's hung in there for a considerable
You're really
amount.
not starting this well,
It
dude.
sounds like I'm a dog or something.
Or 70s porno.
Like this is the beginning of Old Yeller.
I promise, no humans will be harmed in the making.
Well, the
of
dog
this
got shot.
live stream.
Oh
Today, we're gonna have a lot of fun. We're gonna have a lot of fun.
we already are.
Jeff Monette and his beautiful wife Natasha Monette are our guests as we dig into the second episode of November, our family opera month. Like I said, so Jeff and I, we met in undergraduate at Texas Tech University in Lubbock, Texas. And let's talk about that for a moment. Natasha, bear with us as we relive fried cheese sticks at Spanky's and long evenings at Guardski's and
Memory lane.
all of the above.
So
it was funny. I transferred in as a junior, and Jeff is 1 year ahead of me. He's always the senior. So he was in his last year of undergraduate. I was in my junior year. We met. We were both vocal performance majors. Oh, I should also say, if you wanted to share this to your Facebook pages, you could do so now. I'm going to share this to my fan page as well, so we
sharing it right now.
Always get the views that we want.
I like the shirt, sweetie. She's plugging HBO. I like it.
Oh yeah, that's fantastic. I'm also going to leave this up a little bit, so if people have questions, if inquiring minds are interested in knowing, they can write their comments or their questions in the thing, and we'll be able to hopefully maybe answer them for them. Yeah. So anyway, so we met. Yeah, this was fall of 1995. Mm-hmm. Before the cell phone, before most people had cell phones. This was certainly before. I remember that America Online was like a really cool new thing. Mm-hmm. Shortly thereafter, but it was interesting because when we met, singing, it was like simple. It was a simpler time in Lubbock, Texas.
Oh yeah.
And you were studying with John Gillis, and I had come to Texas Tech to continue studying with Gerald Dolter, who was newly appointed on voice faculty there. And I'm pretty sure that's where our double casting relationship began, with the well-known Handelian role of
the rollicking.
It was we were doing, if memory serves correctly,
Xerxes.
It was Xerxes. But do you remember the name that our opera director, who might need to go unmentioned at this point, the opera director had come up with a title. We did Act 1 of Xerxes, and then we did the entirety of Acis and Galatea. And do you remember what the flyers said that were put around the building?
Oh no. Okay.
How to handle an opera.
Oh, that's so bad.
Wow.
Oh.
Yeah. I remember, I can't remember the name of our character, but I remember our aria was, "To rule the stars is not my desire. I will not ask it, no. I will not ask it, no." I want to say Amanasra, but that's an Aida. That's not. It's something like no, it's not Aria. That's another handle. Anyway,
it's something like that though. It's someone if they care will correct.
I could pull it off the shelf and take a look, but I just don't care that much.
There is something called the web if it was important.
Wow. Look at that, using current day technology to refer and make reference back to.
Better than AOL.
Cheers to that.
Yeah,
I don't have anything. Sorry.
Back to the Future, but different.
It's Back to the Future, but different. Yeah. So, we obviously met back then.
Yeah.
Fast forward, I don't know, 28 years or so.
Yeah.
And you were like, dude, I met this girl. She's awesome. She's really cool. You and Christina should come and we should do like a double date or something. And I was like, yeah, okay. And we met you down at your uncle's place and we went out to dinner and stuff. And that was someone different. No, I'm just kidding. That was Natasha. And unfortunately,
I think it was, I met grandmother first.
Yep.
And
Ruth?
I think I met Ruth. And then I think you were the second people I ever met in Jeff's life.
okay.
So I
There you go.
I met grandmother first, who I adore, who I'm just visiting right now in Midland. And then you guys, and I remember that night we went on that date, and I remember sitting there like, I hope you guys like me. And you were like, you were gone, honey. You were going to the restroom. And I just like, I hope you really guys like me. And Weston, you went, you're awesome. We like you.
Well, let's just say I've been there for a few with Jeff. I've been there for a few,
And I don't want to know who the few are.
you ended up with the right one. Let's just say that. But
Yeah.
I will say, if memory serves correctly, I just want you to. This was Natasha at the dinner table when Jeff went to pee. I just want you to know my intentions are pure with Jeff. I know that you must be wondering and I'm like, girl, I was like, you're awesome. We're like,
Good. That's right.
it was not a test to see if you passed. In other words, it was great. And
I
so,
was nervous. I was really nervous.
as well, rightfully so. I intimidate without
Yes,
intention.
you're so intimidating, like a cuddly teddy bear.
Right. So talk a little bit about how you guys met.
I'll do a little bit of the, I guess, introduction. So, I was in the HTO courses, my first show, and Natasha, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you were in the season before.
Yes, my season was the year before you. I'd done two
Right.
shows, and that was your first.
Right. So we actually, she's more of a veteran of the HTO course than me by a year.
And HGO,
One
we're
season.
talking about Houston Grand Opera,
Yes.
with, of course, the amazing Richard Beto as the chorus master, Patrick
Love.
Summers as the general artistic director, a fantastic
HTO did
company.
good.
Yeah, your shirt representing
Mhm.
happens to be the first company where I ever saw an opera. My first opera that I ever saw was in the 1990-91 season, Boito's Mephistopheles, with Sam Raimi singing the title role.
Oh,
And
wow.
I had a similar experience at HGO. I saw a Samson there. My aunt and uncle took me to the opera, and that was amazing.
in high school, when you were in high school?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was one of those things that, I mean, HGO does high school night, and a lot of people remember going to high school night, and then we'll get back to how Natasha and I met, but it's also just, it reminds me just kind of how the ties of, chorus in Texas, how, there's just a rich history of conducting in chorus, especially in Texas. Tech is actually known more for, I would say, choral conducting, music ed, it's got a band.
Oh yeah, their marching band is huge. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's like, that's something that I'm really grateful for, is that, your mother is choir director, my mom's a choir director, there's the kind of this feeder system of going to all state, and going, and then, you have these clinics, and I'm sure there's other states that have that, but you get a sense that things are kind of well positioned in Texas, where, whenever you get your undergrad with these really great institutions, it kind of feeds into that sense that anything is possible. At least that's the way I kind of got.
No, I agree with you, because, I will say that, a lot of, if not all of the states on some level or another have, for example, in high school for singers that are in their chorus, some version of an all-state chorus. But I would say that the majority tends to lend upon it, okay, we need to hear you sing a song or maybe two songs. And then from that audition, you either make all state or you don't, Whereas in Texas, similarly to where, we are currently, unfortunately, 1 million cases in COVID, one of two states that have that, we are also, I think, you know, in any random high school choir program, you're going to find 300, 400 students, you know, in a choral program. Is not weird. And so we do things big down here, and we do it whether it's infectious disease or maybe,
Well, if
I
I
think
could,
some people would say that singing is an infectious disease, right?
well, if I can put a different perspective on it, because I grew up in California,
Mhm.
I think what makes Texas really special is you have the TMEA, the Teachers Music Educator Associations, which run all state choir, but also the UIL's solo and ensemble competitions.
Yeah.
Growing up, when I did choir, there was regional like competitions and there was all state, but there was no like, let's try to make you as a solo singer. Where you in Texas, you can have voice lessons in schools. A lot of schools have them during class time or after school
Yeah.
time. They don't have that in California. I think what makes Texas really, really great is you encourage music.
In a huge
One
way.
of the you in a huge way. It's not all just it's just a side thing. We had choirs in California and musical theater, but it was just seen as a side occupation. I think that's what makes it great here, because you and the teacher, the education understand it's part of the full development of the child, and they
Mhm.
encourage it in a way which is so strong. I think other states don't miss the mark.
Yeah, but you got that because your mom, you know, is a art teacher for.
My mom was an art teacher, and a lot of my music education came from my mother, because my background more is sitting in my room and my mom saying, Tasha, get in here. I'm like, what, mom? She's like, come listen to this album. No, mom, I don't want to. Come watch this movie. No, she'd say, you're going to come in here, you're going to sit, you're going to listen, you're going to watch, and you're going to like it. That's what, that's really where I didn't really grow up listening to a lot of opera. I really didn't. I grew up listening to Judy Garland, Meet Me in St. Louis, Barbra Streisand, On a Clear Day, or Hello Dolly. My first musical memories was being 5, watching Gene Kelly do Singing in the Rain, and what's his name? Donald O'Connor
Sure.
singing Make 'Em Laugh. That's one of my first memories of music. Those are the ones that pushed me, that made me love music so much.
So then when and how did you get into singing, Natasha?
Oh, I've been singing since I was a baby. My mom, I was like, when I was like 4, when I was earlier than Sophie at 4, I was singing around the house. And it kind of just came to me. I just, middle school, I did a little bit of choir. I did a little bit of theater. High school, I auditioned for a high school choir, and they're like, wow, you're really good. Let's put you in the top choir right away. Okay. I just had a musicality that I took for granted. It wasn't.
So when you say a little bit of choir in junior high, did you only take it now? What is junior high? 6th, 7th, and 8th grade?
6th, 7th, and 8th. I
6th,
did
7th.
I think I did 8th grade.
Just
And
8th grade choir.
Just 8th grade, and then I didn't do it I didn't do it freshman year in college, and high
You
school.
mean high school? High school.
Yeah, and then sophomore year I auditioned, and I immediately got into the top choir, the choral. What is my choir? The Madrigals, Rancho Bernardo High School Madrigals.
Okay.
And my junior year, we got to, actually, it's funny. You went to Klein High School, right?
I went to Klein Oak, but it was in the same district. Yeah.
So when I was in my junior year, it was 94, we got asked as the only California choir to represent in this big choir competition where one choir could go from each state.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember we were one of the top choirs, and I remember specifically the big one that won was Klein High School.
Oh, how funny.
And they did this concert, and they had this soloist come out, and he did Ain't Got Time to Die. And it was like, oh my God, I want to be that. It was amazing.
Wow.
Because huge choir, and there's this soloist who sounds like a professional already as a teenager, and you're like, wow.
Wow.
And that was my first experience of Texas choral music, and you're like, wow, that's something powerful.
So Natasha, where did you decide to go to undergraduate, and did you already make a decision at that point to major in music and study voice?
No, I went to the University of San Diego. I want to be close to home, and I did.
Because you grew up where?
San Diego.
Oh, you grew up in San Diego. Okay.
I grew up in San Diego. I want to be close by my folks, and I really didn't have a plan. And I was around my sophomore year, and I'm like, Mom, I haven't been declared. She's like, well, what have you mostly taken? I said, well, music programs and choral programs. She's like, well, I guess you're going to be a music major, aren't you? And I had a voice teacher in high school. She was actually my choir teacher, and she encouraged me a little bit. It didn't really go well. I mean, she was great, but I didn't understand. And then I had a voice teacher in college, my undergrad, Virginia Sublett, who was an amazing person, an amazing singer. Didn't really click. It wasn't until after I graduated from the USD
Now,
that
did you graduate from USD with a Bachelor of Music and Vocal Performance?
yeah, a Bachelor
Okay.
of Music Vocal Performance. And USD was a small private college. They really didn't have a big music program.
Okay.
And I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was one of those, I think I'm one of those stupid, naive people like, I'm talented. Hey, just here I am, not having a clue how it's done. I think a lot of young kids, they just think I'm going to go into music and it's just going to happen. And they're not given knowledge or skills about how to make it happen.
Right.
But I was really lucky. After college, I ran into my old voice teacher, or my mom did one night, because my first big professional gig was at San Diego Opera Chorus when they were doing the Verdi Requiem. And that actually was my first real opera performance moment. And I loved it. And the next year I was asked to come back and do Otello. That's why Otello is so special to me. Verdi's Otello. That was the first opera I sang in. That was the first thing I ever did. And it was my first big full production of opera. And I went, this is just amazing. And that's when I was like, I love this so much. But my old voice teacher said, you need to meet Jane Westbrook. And Jane.
Now, when you say your old voice teacher, from high school, from college?
From college, when I was at USD. And she said, you need to sing with Jane Westbrook. And
Okay.
Jane was one of the original singers in the Robert Shaw chorale. And she had done it for years. And I love her. Oh gosh, my memories of Jane are amazing. She lived in a mobile home, and she's this amazingly warm, big woman. And the first thing she said to me, if you don't work, we don't work. And it was the best thing anyone ever told me. Yeah. Because she was like, okay, if you don't work, I'm not working with you.
Yeah.
And I started, and there were things I still didn't get, but I tried working with her and understanding. And I worked with her for a few years, and then I was very lucky to be seen by someone and get into USC, University of Southern California. I got seen by somebody there, and they really liked me, and they'd asked me to come do a quick little summer program, and I did it. And then they said, you should audition for us. And I got in and started my master's there. Okay. I didn't complete it because after my first year, I got invited to sing with the brand new Young Artist Program at LA Opera, the Domingo Thornton Young Artist Program.
Okay.
And that's when I got to sing for Placido Domingo. And that was like a big experience.
Well, and I'm sure. So hold on, wait. We've blown past a lot of moments. So so you kind of went from this idea of like, well, I don't even know what I want to do, to I guess I'll be a vocal performance major, to meeting someone, Jane Westbrook, you say?
Jane Westbrook.
Jane Westbrook. So what, it sounds to me like the work that you did with her technically was perhaps one of the first moments in your singing world that sort of set you up for more detailed work
she was
with the voice, or?
She was the first one that helped me understand what my potential could be. I just thought I was.
How did she do that?
She started throwing hard pieces at me. I was always used to think, oh, I just really sing. I like what I want to sing. I really just picked songs I liked. And she was like, no, you're going to sing this. No, you're going to sing this. She said, you're going to go sing a Rossini piece. You're going to go sing a Handel piece. One of the pieces that was my stable for years and years and years, the one that I still love, is a Handel piece, Iris Hence Away.
We should say you're a mezzo-soprano.
I'm a mezzo-soprano, yes. Yeah, I'm a mezzo. But she challenged me in a way to start listening to myself differently. And I still didn't get all her technique. And she was really fun, but I didn't understand everything she was coming at. I want to say I was one of those persons, although she was a great teacher in many ways about teaching some technique, she didn't know how sometimes to understand and unpack it in a way that I could figure out. But I just kept working and working and working. But I started seeing, wow, I have a bigger voice. I always thought, oh, I just want to be this cute little pop singer. And I was like, no, I have something bigger and better.
You wanted to be, wait, hold on. You wanted to be you wanted to be a pop singer?
Oh, my thought when I was in like middle school, high school, I'm going to be one of those cute Debbie Gibson or Tiffany people, because that's what I grew up listening to, because I love
a mall singer is what you aspired to be at one point.
I think you can still do that.
We can still make that happen. We
oh
can
yeah, Katie Mills, here I come.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so push pause on that for a second. So
Sure.
Jeff, your mom was a choir director. Did you ever have your mom as a choir director?
Yeah.
I didn't have your mom as my choir. I had my mom as my choir director, though.
I had my mom as my choir director, and bless her heart, because I was a little hellion.
And when did that start? Junior high or high school?
High school. I was in choir sophomore, junior, and senior year. Yeah.
Did you ever take choir? Great. Was that your first time taking like an organized choral thing?
Yeah.
Sophomore year?
But I mean, kind of like Natasha, I had a voice teacher that I went to in high school, and then obviously, my mom and I, like, we practiced a lot to get ready for the all-state stuff, and going on ensemble and stuff. But I did have a voice teacher, so I was exposed to some kind of baby opera arias in high school, and that was kind of my first experience. And like I said, I did go see a performance of Samson at HGO, and for me, I always kind of knew I could sing. I remember going to, in elementary school, I went to Midland Christian School in Midland, and they had like 10:30 worship service or something. And I remember I would be singing. So the first part of it would be song, and then there would be so I would be singing the songs, and everyone would be like, because I would
who's
love
this
it.
kid that can belt?
No, but I was singing, and I was happy, and I was singing, and it was like, it was something that I liked to do, and I wasn't like, like in the choir, in the congregation, like, I was like, all right.
You were confident in your abilities.
It was just, I was feeling that it should be sung
loudly.
I don't know.
Confident.
So a little bit.
Confident. You were confident.
Cocky.
No, I'm not cocky.
Your wife, you say yes. You say yes, wife. I was cocky. That's what you say.
But anyway, that was kind of the first thought that, okay, well, this is something I like to do and I can do.
Right.
And I'm not embarrassed, or I'm not gonna, hide that little light of mine. This little light of mine.
You let yours shine. You let it shine. That's the best thing ever.
Oh. Well, so anyway, fast forward, I was in band as well. I played trombone.
You played trombone, okay? I played
trombone. Yeah. So reading music,
very bad flute.
Musically literate was something that I was somewhat able to do by the time I went to college at Texas Tech as a voice major, because like we said, there's kind of a history and that substructure that Natasha's talking about with this Team EA and all these competitions. And if that's your tribe in high school, you have opportunities in Texas to perform. Like you were saying, competing at Allstate, it lets you know, hey, I've got to get in the top 5, and there's going to be like 80 guys who compete for this. So just being able to know your stuff, being able to perform, it's not really but to be able to audition and handle your nerves and that kind of stuff, it was it kind of prepared you.
You're sorely dating yourself, because now there's not 80 guys, there's like 8,000 guys, and they're all trying to get into, and they changed it. They changed the Allstate process to where now there's the mixed choir that you still, I believe it's not even the top 5, I think it's the top 6, but then the next 5 or 6 men are selected into the Allstate men's chorus, and the next 5 or 6 women are selected into the all-state women's chorus. So they have like 3 different all-state choirs. They have the mixed, they have the men's, and they have the women's. Yeah, so it has changed quite a bit over the years. You know, when you and I were in the competition, it used to be the district, regional, area, and then state.
Right.
Now it's called district, region, pre-area,
Pre-area.
and then area. So there is no state audition anymore. It's called area. So they've made some different, you know, changes to it. And of course, in COVID, and the reason I know about this is because my mom still teaches high school students who are in the all-state choir this 2020. You know,
Yeah.
they did it virtually this year. So, but to your point, it is such a competitive, encouraging art form branch in Texas that people just flock to. I mean, it's crazy
But
how many people start out doing
can
that.
I just say, I think that early sense of friendly competition pulls out, I think, a drive in young singers. If they really want that, that gets them started on a path of like, okay, this is what I really want to go for.
And this is what it takes.
And this is what it takes. So when like sometimes when you were where I was, there was never the sense of drive of this is what I want to do and everything. You either loved it or you just enjoyed it and thought it was for fun.
Right.
I think it sets in that mindset for these young singers. So, you know, I'm good at this and this is what I want to do. Okay, what do I do to get to here, get ABC?
Oh yeah.
That sense, I think that's one of the best things about it.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, I certainly took my competitive nature from playing sports and adapted that to singing for better or for worse. And that's what drove me to try to do things.
And it helps you not only, I think, understand the ups of doing well in the business, but the lows of it, how you can handle it. And I think it's one of the things that I feel I wasn't prepared for. I don't think I understood well enough. Because when I tried to go for a solo career, I was just like, wait a minute, I'm talented. Why don't I do this? I'm in this young artist program. I've worked really hard. Why don't people see that? I didn't have that preparedness of understanding, okay, this is just going to be part of the game. You just got to move on. Let's make it happen.
So talk to us a little bit, Natasha. Like, when did you realize that you were a mezzo-soprano, and what did that mean to you in that moment of either self-discovery or when some teacher looked at you and said, you're not a soprano, you're a mezzo?
Oh no, that was the opposite. I knew I was a mezzo right away. I knew I had this bigger voice. What my problem was when I was in the Young Artist Program at LA, the director solidly believed I was a soprano because I had high notes. She was like, no, you're a soprano, you're a soprano. I said, no, I'm a mezzo. I know I'm a mezzo. And she wouldn't believe me. And literally, she fought me on it. I think that's one of the reasons I don't think she really afterwards really helped me after the program, because she just had an issue with that. I tried to not listen to her. I mean, one day I was in a master class, God bless it. What's her name? Vanessa. That great soprano, Vanessa. No. Your brain just went out of my head.
Carol Vanessa?
Yes, Carol Vanessa. That's it. Carol Vanessa. I love her. I got a few chances to work with her, and she came to LA Opera. And what happened was, she said, I did an aria with her, and she says, and I remember the administrator of the program was there that day, and she says, no, you're not a soprano, you're a mezzo. And I literally said, can you say that again, please? She said, no, you're not a soprano, you're a mezzo. But
Carol Vanessa, and that's, I mean, you need to have that information though, because
you do. And
technique can.
Speaking of technique, I really want to say the one technical person that really helped me the most understand technique, and the best person I've ever worked with, and God bless her, I only had 2 weeks with her in my entire life, Dolores Zacek, is one of the best, because she doesn't take it personal. She is such a scientist and such a technician. I met her through LA Opera, and she invited me to her house in Reno and said, I want you to come work with me for a week. And you go into her house and it's nothing but technical and science journals. But I think what she's great about, and what I try to do now with my voice students, is she tells you what you're doing wrong, why you're doing it, and do this instead. I think I had, even with Jane and my other teacher, Virginia, and my others after that, they would just say, okay, I remember one of my teachers saying, okay, you're a tree, now sing it. I'm like, what do you mean I'm a tree? How do you
using visualizations?
Yeah. And it's like, if you don't explain why I'm thinking this. And Delora one day, I was like, I can't get this, I can't get my breath to work. She says, because you're bringing up your chest, breathe out, moving your ribs. And I went, oh, anytime I had some problem, she was like, you're doing this, do this instead. And I went,
Yeah.
wait a minute, the clarity of it. And
how would you, I mean, looking back on that technical study with Delora, how would you, or Dolores, how would you summarize her technical approach to singing? I mean, because she kind of has like a freak of nature voice, and I mean that in the best possible way.
But
it's unbelievable. It's like inhuman. It's amazing.
But she goes at it like a machine. She goes at it like a machine, and it's just technical. This is the basics. This is how it works. This is, your breath is this. You breathe down in here. You open your ribs. It's very technical.
So she talked a lot about low breath and rib expansion,
rib
upon the inhalation,
stretching up in there, but also talking about placement as well and how they're connected. And the thing that I think that for years almost drove me to like going, I'm going batty wrong. What's wrong with me? Because my experiences after Jane were teachers that made me question what I was doing. That made me like, this feels good to me. This feels right to me. And then I would go into my teacher and like, why are you doing that? That's all wrong. That's not what you're supposed to do. And I'm like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? This works. I know this works for me. It was not good, but.
Well, can you be a little bit more specific?
Without
say like,
naming.
what did Delora have you doing with placement and with breath that then a different teacher would listen to you and say, no, I want you to do this. What was it specifically that they wanted you to do?
Well, they were like, no, it was more like placement. Like you sit more up here in your head. Don't worry about the palate so much, more focus here. It was Delora, and I had a great coach at LA Opera, Anthony Manoli, who was wonderful.
Oh, Tony Manoli, fantastic.
I love Tony. And he was the first one really about placement. He would go to me, say, ham. And I'm like, ham? And getting that aperture really focused and forward. And Delora worked with a little bit, but he worked with more. But when I would go to my teacher that I was supposed to work with at the time, I would do that. And he's like, why are you doing this? It needs to be more up in here. And I'm like, it needs to be up in here. It's like, I said, but
okay. Yeah.
And that drove me because it was insane.
Second, whenever you're done with that thought, because if I'm thinking about like this part, I think sometimes singers can get, it's just too ethereal, and it's not that it doesn't have its place, but it's something that's not, because like people can feel a buzz on the palate, right? And you can feel when that, so there's a sensory feedback that gives it positive reinforcement. But whenever you start thinking about, opening the attic door and stuff, well, because if you're not coordinating with the slow breath, then you can almost, it can add some other tension that you don't even know you're doing.
Right.
So, like for me, as far as some of my vocal epiphanies or roadblocks.
Well, you started your journey. You mentioned you had a voice teacher in high school, and then that led you, I mean, you got into Texas Tech University, and did you study with John Gillis the whole time there? Yes,
I did. And he was really good, but I didn't really sing on The Voice. So
and what do you mean by that when you say sing on The Voice?
It was breathy, but you don't know what you don't know. So my vocal folds were not fully engaged. So, it was a nice, healthy, young baritone sound, but I kind of went all through undergrad, not really understanding what it means to sing operatically. With the breath support, because obviously, you talk about support in undergrad, but if you're not, if there's no coordination with what you're doing, how much air you're sending, and the fact that you're allowing, because you talk about this, like having full closure.
Yeah.
Well, but hey, we're talking about closure, but we're not talking about tension.
Right.
And if you're, again, like Natasha's saying, if you're too in your head and you start hearing closure and you start squeezing, so then, it can get tough, but I just didn't get all that stuff together. But it wasn't, Mr. Gillis's fault. He was great.
Oh, no, of course not. I mean, and the thing that I think is important for us to realize as we look back, maybe we just weren't at the right place in our development to really understand what it was that somebody was talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, so how would you summarize your 4 years of study with Gillis, like what would you say technically you left that studio? I mean, my
Yeah.
God, you got into the best opera school in the country
Yeah.
from apparently
Yeah.
not singing on your voice. So
Yeah, you know, well, he was really encouraging. I remember he told my mom, he said, you know, Jeff's good enough. He could do IU, you know, and that was really nice of him to do that. So, you know, letter of recommendation and everything, and auditioned for IU in Manhattan School of Music. I didn't get into Manhattan School of Music, but IU, I got into IU.
Indiana University, for those who don't know the lingo.
Yeah, but the the vocal kind of epiphany part came whenever I went to IU, and so while you're auditioning there, it's kind of like audition weekend. And then so you get to listen to an opera. And I remember watching McKee at IU at the MAC, and it's this massive, they always brag that it's 1 inch wider than the stage. You know, and you go in, the facilities are ridiculous. Weston, you and I were double cast there for a lot of shows, and you're looking at the back of your, and it's got, you know, you're like, who am I wearing today? And it's
well, it was kind of amazing to think about, you know, when you and I were double cast as Belcore in Elixir of Love, L'Elisir d'Amore at Indiana University. That was the Robert O'Hearn production that they made a video of, with Pavarotti as Nemorino, Kathleen Battle as Adina, and Gino Quilico as Belcore. And on the back of my costume, it said Quilico. And I mean, to just think about the opportunity at a school that allowed for such, sorry to interrupt, Natasha, I'm just going to mute you. I know you're at the airport, so whenever they do the announcement,
yeah, do that.
I'll mute you. But just to think about that kind of experience of singing on the same set with the same costumes from the Metropolitan Opera, and here we are, students that are dreaming of one day performing in any opera house.
That's incredible.
So it was unbelievable. But you were talking about technically, once you what was the thing that kind of opened your mind?
You know, I'm singing. I just auditioned, and then I watched these people who were my age or maybe a year or two older, and they're making sounds, and I'm like,
do you remember what show and who was singing?
No, it was McTeague. It was like
William Bolcom's opera McTeague.
Yeah, and it was just, I don't remember I couldn't remember the names of the singers, but I just remember like, wow, these are guys that are like 25, and I sound nothing like them. You know?
Yeah.
Right. And if that means that I have the ability to realize that I'm deficient and that gives me good ears, then I don't know if that's a blessing or not.
No.
But it was quite obvious. But I mean, to your point, so this is a great story. So you read the brochure of all the voice teachers, and I'm like, George Otazzi. Oh, he looks like he's done a lot. Maybe I'll just walk up to him and
maybe I'll just say, hey, I want you to be my teacher.
Hey,
how you doing?
Hey, I'm a good old boy from Texas, and I'm an idiot. So I just knocked on his door, and he's like, hello? I mean, I could do it. Weston does a better one than me, and I sang for him, and I don't remember. I think I did this when I, like, the first week or two that I was at IU, and I was like, I guess I got to go find a voice teacher. And so I sang Bella Siccome and Angelo, and he's like, well, have you ever heard of learning how to sing on the breath?
And you were like, no.
What does that mean? He's like, well, I've got one of my students. Maybe you could work with him for a couple of years, and then come back once you learn how to sing on the breath. Wow. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, I will. He was so awesome. But I mean, but the long story short was, I did learn how to get better, and I did kind of understand some of that, and he did let me in the studio, and I was in his studio for a couple of years. Just an amazing guy. And then we worked, you and I both were in McDonald's studio.
James McDonald, yeah.
So, some of my vocal things, as far as, roadblocks that I had to get rid of. I had a concerto on my high notes.
And how would you describe a concerto for somebody who doesn't know what that means?
Well, it's like Mighty Mouse. It's like, here I come to save the day. It's like this.
Kermit the Frog.
But it's
Hello, Kermit the Frog here.
Yeah,
Cool.
but basically it's a lot of tension. But again,
Yeah, muscular tension.
The problem with tension is you don't know it until it's gone. And
Right.
so I had to get some of that, and we had mini discs, and so it was like, wow, you remember that's the thing about undergrad and grad school. It's like you get these great lessons where you have these breakthroughs, and it's so obvious that you're putting on this mini disc. You're like, wow, how come I didn't learn this last year whenever I was singing on Yeager and I had to sound like an idiot? Well, you can only
Hey, I
do
should
so
say,
much.
speaking of IU, Alfonso Cherry says, "What's up, old buds?"
Oh my gosh.
And Evelyn Pollock says, "Hiya, Jeff."
Well, my goodness.
And Liz Kahn says, "Aw."
Oh,
We've already got a little reunion going on. This is great.
oh, that's awesome. But yeah, that's the thing is, those vocal, the performance opportunities, the ability to, I mean, we did.
So who was the student that you studied with of Totsy's that helped you learn to sing on the breath?
Michael Belknap.
Okay.
He's
And what did he do to get you to learn to sing on the breath instead of with the breath?
I remember he had that thing about like biting into an apple to get the top palate up. That was helpful.
Yeah.
Because I remember we've talked about this. There was a voice teacher that will remain unnamed at IU that I asked about the soft palate, and this person didn't give me an answer about whether you should raise the soft palate or not. Because to Natasha's point, I think very technically about whenever I can sing about, how much jaw, all that stuff. Once you get done singing, then you don't think about that while you're performing. But, you always have that questions about like, how much space can you allow? Not create.
Right. But
allow.
Yeah.
But, whenever I would put my finger back there, I'm like, well, should my soft palate be raised or not? So it seems like a simple question. If you ask a teacher, they should be able to say that,
Well, and some teachers vehemently believe that the soft palate should not be raised.
Okay.
So I mean, there's such a the same thing about this idea of when you take a breath to sing, is it down and out or is it in and up? And there are many professional singers, I'm sure, that believe in the in and up idea. I personally find more success with down and out. I've tried figuring out all of the above. But down and out seems to make the most sense to me. And so,
okay.
But to what you were saying with Michael Belknap trying to create that space in the palate, but then do you remember what he talked about to like get you to get on the breath?
He had a good instrument, so you could kind of tell his vocal energy. I can't remember anything specific, but you're singing around. It's such a small world at IU with, you're hearing other people sing and you're going to other master classes and, and you go into practice and you've got to figure some of this stuff out.
Yeah.
So, I had a big-ish instrument, but I learned slowly as your voice gets older that what it takes to really sing fully on the breath. But even then, I got done with IU. I really didn't quite get it all together vocally until I started working with Steve Smith at Aspen. He was kind of that last step that got that last bit of tension. Not that I'm a perfect singer, but at least when someone can say, oh, well, that's a little bit, I can be like, okay, well, then that's probably just a relic from something. But and you still use some of his kind of basic.
Oh, God. I mean, I was very fortunate to the lineage of my teachers. I never had to go through anybody who wasted my time in any way, shape, or form.
That's lucky.
In fact, the exact opposite. And so I use every single one of my teachers' ingredients, if you want to put it that way. Like I think about singing as a recipe, and you think about the technical side of things. It's like, what ingredients are you putting into this recipe so that when you sing, you have this balance to it? But amount of ingredients that have Stephen Smith's thumbprint on it is considerable. His philosophy of teaching, his process in learning new repertoire, the understanding of the separation of function between the jaw, the larynx, and the tongue. There's so many ingredients of his teaching. I mean, I was with him for like 9 years, 8.5 years. So yeah, I think so highly of him as a teacher and as just a vocal pedagogue.
Yeah. So that really kind of helped set me on the path. So whenever I got done with IU, I was in New York doing the whole starving artist thing for long enough.
Long enough.
So I came back to Houston, and I guess we can start our story we were talking about as far as meeting Natasha. So I was in my first production, and
Beethoven, was it?
Yeah, it was Fidelio.
That's
Fidelio. Yeah.
That's it. I was trying to remember the name.
It was Fidelio. And we were partnered up, and she was my partner.
No, let me explain the story, because I remember it very well. Because I'm sorry, I think it's a cute story. So anyway, so Fidelio, there's only one scene where the women are in the show, and we're the first night of staging, and they said, okay, women, pick a side. You go to a side, and then they said, and this is the truth, the director said, you're going to cross to the other side, and you're going to pick someone to be your husband. And I'm sorry, it's really cute, honey. And
that is really cute. You're going to pick someone to be your husband.
And what happened is we have this wonderful friend who unfortunately passed away a few years ago, Deshaun. And I said, Deshaun, let's be partners. He's like, oh no, honey, I'm going to grab somebody else. Right behind him was Jeff. And I walked up and I said, well, I guess I'll take this sweet old handsome thing right here. And he looked at me like I was the biggest weirdo in the world. Like, what are you? So we met, and it just started there. That's how we met that night. You can continue, honey, from there.
No, but that's kind of where we met, and then we've been very fortunate to be able to do on HBO work. I think, is this, Natasha, this is your 9th season?
This is my 10th. I just got my 10-year pin.
Oh wow.
And this is Jeff's, well, if we got any shows, but but this would be, this would be considered my 10th year. And it's been great, because I love it. I love singing at HGO. It's been the best. It's the biggest blessing that has been in my life, because when I went to HGO, I was at a point where I was like, why? Things just did not go well for me in California. And I moved here, and I was really like,
singing wise, you mean?
Singing wise.
But you said you got into the Los Angeles Opera Young Artist Program.
But I did, but halfway through it, after working with Delora, where and like when she talked about breathing, just think of bellows, how they stretch and open and everything. And after really working with Delora, I realized everything I was doing was wrong. So where I'm at is supposed to be at a point where I am competing to go for the jobs. I shifted gears and said, I want to learn to do everything the right way. Now, unfortunately, at the time, they put me with a teacher who I will not name, who just didn't get me. And unfortunately, he did not understand me and put me through, and I don't mean to say anything mean, but I went through a mental breakdown. Like, what is this? And I spent 2 hard years at LA Opera. I covered more roles, did more roles as a young artist than all the others. And they said, well, we're really not going to use you, because even though you're fabulous and you're talented, we have nothing for you. And I was struggling. And when I moved to Houston for the first year, I did not sing. My first year after moving to Houston, I did not get near a piano. I didn't practice at all. And it was Kathleen Kelly, who I'd met at Santa Fe. And I went to a local concert, and I ran into her. She says, Natasha, if you want to come have a lesson, come see me. And I did. And I just told her.
So you were an apprentice at Santa Fe Opera?
2 years.
For 2 years. And then did you do other programs too?
Maryland. I did
Maryland, San Francisco Opera. Yeah,
I did that. So I did some big stuff.
Yeah.
But because my technique was not where it needed to be, I didn't get the work. And I get that now. But when I saw Kathleen, I was a total wreck. And she said the best thing to me. She cleared my head up. She said, Natasha, you were trying to go through the door a size of a pin, and 1,000 other people are trying to go through it. And I went, there's nothing I can do.
Yeah.
But, you know, I had a few lessons with her, and then I auditioned for HGO. And my first show at HGO was Peter Grimes with Richard.
Oh, wow.
So learning Richard's technique of learning music. Ooh.
How would you describe that?
Richard is the best at learning music. I teach it to my students now.
Yeah,
because it's the best. How he breaks it down. You learn the count singing. 1 and 2 and T and 4 and 1 E and 2, and he teaches it. Then he goes through the words specifically how to say them. And then you count sing it with music. And then you speak it on the rhythm. And then you put it together. And it's so solid. I remember after the opening night of Peter Grimes, I went to Richard and I said, thank you. I'd forgotten how much I love music. I mean, he just, I'm telling you, if Richard's saying this, he made it my life so much better. And I'm so grateful.
Well, yeah, I think he
in many
had
ways.
that impact. He's had that impact on a many number of singers.
Yeah. And beyond full, because through him, I met my husband and I have my kids.
Yeah.
He's changed my life in ways that he doesn't, I think, get. And I'm grateful.
So, Jeff, how did you transition out of pursuing a career or pursuing singing as a career?
So you're saying I don't get the job?
Sorry, what?
You got the job with me, baby.
You got cast.
I've been holding out, man. I thought why isn't this phone blowing up?
I mean, I don't know.
What are you trying to say, Weston?
At some point, I remember you were like, "Screw this," and you were like, "Here, you want this score?" And I was like,
"Yeah, no, it was tragic. It was just like an opera." No, so I was in New York, doing various kind of off.
To quote Corky St. Clair.
Yeah,
I was directing off Broadway, and enough is enough. Okay, I get the joke. Okay,
I guess it was kind of like Corky.
And I found Judith the most amazing pantsuit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's the people.
But no,
people find each other.
But basically, I had a manager, and I was kind of doing some small, outreach things. And just, as everyone knows, it's
well, but I mean, back up a second. You did apprenticeships at Opera in the Ozarks, Des Moines Metro Opera, Cincinnati Opera.
Yeah, and then I did some outreach with
Opera
Carolina and Kentucky Opera.
Yeah. So you did all in. You were actually successfully climbing the ladder of. I did these auditions and I got in, and then
I did maybe a year or two of kind of main stage auditions with the manager and stuff, and so I got pretty close to getting some employment as a singer that is doing it. And whenever you're doing those programs, they're paying, so you could look on my tax statement for a certain year and say, okay, well, you were a singer that year,
of course.
But then as just COVID will relay, some years you're not a singer. And then some years you just kind of realize that, well, maybe we're just not going to be a singer. So it was kind of that realization. Then whenever I moved back to Houston, I kind of laid fallow, like Natasha. I laid fallow for a year because you don't want to be bitter.
Right.
And I'm not a bitter person. And so you have to kind of make peace with coming back to the arts on the right terms.
Yeah.
Where you're giving and not taking.
Right.
Because I don't HGO has some really good friends, some really good colleagues, and there's usually kind of two types, like the young up and coming singers who you're getting some gainful employment while they're kind of navigating that.
Members of the studio.
Yeah, and then
kids right out of college.
Yeah, kids out of college, that are maybe going to try to go do something, and so
Mhm.
they might be here for a couple of years, and then they're out. Then they decide to go to grad school, or they decide to go to, a young artist program or something, and we might not see them again.
Yeah.
But then you got the old timers like Natasha and I that come back to it, and hopefully people would say that we come to it on the right terms. That it's
Right.
something, we want to be fulfilled artistically, and
Yeah.
that gives us that outlet to where the professionalism, it's got that sense of like it's a home with everyone. It's a great production value, and like I get to sing with some of my friends. I've been on stage with you, I've been on stage with Larry, I've been on stage with Kyle, I've been on stage with quite a few people that I've met at other young artist programs and stuff. And so to get to share the stage with those people, I mean, little hint for people who would ever worry about that. If you are in a chorus with a friend that is on the main stage, and they, you were friends with them in grad school, they don't care that you're in the chorus. It's fine.
They love having
Because
fun in the crowd.
we're all making music and we're all having fun out there.
It
And it's,
is.
Right.
it's like this is better than a day job. Any day
yeah.
in chorus rehearsing is better than a desk job or a day job.
Oh, it's the best.
Speaking of Larry Brownlee and Kyle Kettleson, you mentioned that when you auditioned for Indiana University, you went to see the production that they were doing over that audition weekend. I remember when I went to audition for Indiana University, it was a production of La Cenerentola featuring Larry Brownlee as Prince Ramiro, and Kyle Kettleson was singing Don Magnifico, and Katie Lang was singing the Cenerentola.
Katie Lang?
Catherine Lang was her name. She was a mezzo at Indiana University. That was she was phenomenal. She did Maryland as well, actually. I haven't kept in touch with her. I'm not sure where she is now, but anyway, I had that similar experience of sitting out in the house and just listening. I mean, can you listen to Larry singing I think a year later he made his Scala debut as Almaviva at Barbara Seville. It's like who, and the production was one of those Robert O'Hearn productions, so it was from the Met. And when the curtain went up, I was just like, holy, what is happening right now? Like,
why is this?
Yeah. But then to your other point, dude, like if I think about my entire performance history, one of the biggest highlights in my life was to make my debut at Houston Grand Opera as Scarpia in Tosca, not only because that was the opera company above all others that I ever wanted to sing at, not only because that was my dream role, but dude, I will never forget in Act One coming down the steps of that ridiculously tall scaffolding and having you there at the bottom of the steps, putting your arm around me and being like, dude, that was awesome. I mean, that kind of moment is like, there's nothing better
all
than
colleagues at the end of the day. And just because we talked before about, you're going to kind of maybe expand some of the hood to add, other colleagues like, coaches and stuff. I mean,
coaches, conductors, directors. I'm interested in understanding everybody's process.
The idea of technique is not just something that's sacred to singers.
That's right.
The process, peeling back the layers and finding out how we all collaborate and make art, that's transversal. There's people that you meet, and I'm sure you can mention many of them, that are just amazing, phenomenal at what they do. And even if it's like the costume people, or the coaches or conductors, that's what really inspires us, is whenever you see people loving what they do, thriving in the arts. And let's just hope we can get back to that as soon as possible.
Yeah. So speaking of,
does the world need the arts any more than it does right now?
Exactly right. So speaking of, I mean, what have you guys been doing to try to stay artistically fulfilled during COVID?
Well, I'm lucky to still have a few voice students. Most are not doing it, but I have one student right now that I'm able to see, and I like to say that when I work with my kids, that's why I really love doing now, is working with kids. And I tell them, when I start with them, I say, okay, you know what? This is your journey. Everybody it's the basic technique, but your body is built differently than mine. You got to discover things on your own. And I want you to discover, and I want you to question, and I want you to learn.
Yeah.
So that's what's been keeping me going. And I have this young girl I'm working with right now, and she's had teachers in the past. And I was working with her the other day, and she's trying to learn this warm up I'm doing. And I said, "You're doing great." And she started laughing. I said, "What's the matter?" I said, are you not used to compliments? And she said, "Yeah, I'm not." She's like, and I said to her, "Okay, I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm gonna be tough on you because I know you can do this, but I'm never gonna be mean. I'm always gonna be positive."
Yeah.
And I feel so that keeps me going.
Mhm.
Well, and aren't you coming home from a gig right now? Didn't you just sing for a?
I just sang for a charity event last night that Jeff's mom planned for an amazing ministry. And I mean, they're truly doing God's work here right now with this ministry. And I mean, I didn't get paid for it, but I'm so blessed to have been there and hear that woman talk and get a chance to feel that I could participate and contribute something to what they're trying to give.
Yeah.
So, and then, on top of that, just, I don't know, going and singing as much as, or helping our kids, hearing our kids try to pretend to be singers. And
so you have two beautiful children. Talk a little bit about them.
Oh, Sophia is 7 and Connor just turned 6. As you were well aware, last week you came to his birthday party. And Sophie, well, for years it would be like, "Mommy, stop singing, you're too loud." Same with Jeff.
That's what my daughter still tells me. So
well, you do have a big voice. It's fabulous. To like last night, Sophie's like, "Mommy, I was telling everybody last night, you're just an amazing singer. And I made all the other little girls hear you, and they were so right. You're so beautiful, Mom."
Oh, that's so sweet.
It's like, "Oh, thank you." That's like, yay. It's so fun.
That's a big win.
But Connor's is like, whoop, whoop, whoop. That's kind of his idea of singing or hearing. Am I wrong?
That's awesome.
It's kind of like.
Yeah, I mean, we get to live all this again. I mean, that's some of the joys of parenthood. We get to live all this again through them.
It's chorus the best thing about what I love about chorus is working at HGO with Richard is, we are asked to be our best singers, technically, musically, and have fun. And I love being on stage. I'm a bit of a ham, as you know, with me. But also the best thing is at night, I get to go home to my husband and I get to kiss my babies goodnight. And I mean, I'm fulfilled.
Now, have they ever had the opportunity to come see you guys in a show?
Have they done
no, last year. Remember, it was February. They got to see Favorite. They got to see us in Favorite. So didn't last long. Connor, and then when you did Elixir, you did Miller a few years before that with Miller. They maybe lasted maybe like 20 minutes into it, but they got to see Daddy.
Mm-hmm.
But Sophie's first real experience was this past spring, and Kate took Sophia, and it was hard for Sophie. But she was so proud. Well, she accidentally thought I was Jamie Barton. She said, "Mommy, that was you on stage." I said, "No, that's somebody else." She said, "No, but you sounded so good." I went, yeah, that was Jamie. And she's amazing. Yes, she's totally amazing. But it was so cute. But she loved it. She was like, but she loved the music. She loved the costumes, the instrumental music. She was all about it. She was kind of dancing and she just couldn't help herself.
That's amazing.
It was a great experience for her.
If you get kids exposed to it early enough, they can't help but like it.
I know, right? I mean, it's so funny that the art form in general is sort of perceived as this like snooty high art that is unattainable through anyone who doesn't make $1 million, when in reality, it's like the moment that anybody is exposed to it. And I mean, I think between the three of us, we've probably done enough educational outreach where we've sung for little kids, and the looks on their faces are just like, oh my God, that's amazing.
It's
it reads.
What's that?
It reads,
Exactly.
It always will.
Something that the human voice can do, and people realize, wait a minute, you don't have a microphone? How do you do that? And it's that technique of learning how to essentially undo all of the other, unwanted muscular efforts that we somehow become ingrained with, that allow us the freedom to be able to create a sound in a way that is at the same time powerful as it is beautiful. And I think that when kids who are so innocent hear something like that, there's just this kind of like I don't know.
That just it grabs.
Wonder.
It grabs everybody.
Opportunity.
A wonder, yeah, and like a gravitational pull towards it. So it's like,
Yeah.
what is that? You know, and then when you combine all the other art forms along with it, you know,
It's a possibility of like, wait, is that something I could do?
right?
Because I think, when you listen to other genres of music, and there's some really great ones out there, you know, especially with modern day pop music where it's very technical and they're trying to do everything with keyboards.
That's very produced.
It's very produced. This very produced sound. When you get people, I think really people know a good voice without the producing. They just know a good voice when they hear it. And like, oh yeah, that's what singing should be.
You bring up a good point. So Jeff, when I mean, I've always said it. I think I've already said this on this, but I think you possess the ears to, if you ever wanted to be a professional voice teacher, I think you possess an ability to dissect the voice and technically in a way that is unique. You don't always have the bedside manner that one might desire, but you certainly can hear the deficiencies. So Natasha, you bring up this amazing, beautiful voice. I can't. What did you say?
Well, I think, like I said, people, everything's so produced, but I think people really know when they hear a really good voice, they know it's a good voice.
A good voice.
They know what a good sound is.
So Jeff, how would you describe, like, what in your mind is a good voice, is a good sound, is a good technical sound?
It grabs your ear in a certain way that you know that how they're producing it is free.
Free from what?
Their own well, for me, like the way I try to get that, like being Jeff and a half, like it's free from
wait, you quickly bypassed something that is hysterical. Being Jeff and a half.
Right. So as an artist, that extra half that your ego tries to put into your voice, it's not any good. That effort,
well said.
that conscious effort does no good.
Right.
So like I remember whenever I was singing, because I was, my high notes were not as good as they are now. Not that they're good, but I would always try to sing loud and like put a little extra hot sauce on it to prove what? I remember Dr. McDonald was like, Jeff, why do you do that? I'm like, because I can, but it's like, but it's not pretty, Jeff. So but my point is that like I hear in other people whenever they don't try to put anything else into the instrument, it's just obviously free and easy from the top and bottom. You don't hear them shifting gears into different from chest voice, and all that is smooth.
Right.
Larry, someone like Larry, his top, bottom, all that, it's really nice, but you also can tell that someone's singing on the breath, hearing, like you're saying, hearing someone's air escape while they sing, hearing that breathy tone, it's an inefficiency. You know that there's more voice that they could share if they knew how to do it. And whenever you hear like a 70% breathy voice, you're like, I want to hear the whole thing.
Right.
All that gorgeous, unique voice that, no one has your voice. Everyone's voice is unique. It's like a fingerprint. You can sound like someone else, but you won't sound up. You will never be an identical match of someone else's instrument.
Right.
So you want to hear all of that gorgeous uniqueness,
Yeah, I've recently turned to analogies in my teaching, which I think can be sometimes laughable, but hopefully helpful. But it's like the same way that you wouldn't go out for a drive and poke a bunch of holes in your gas tank before you leave the house. Mm-hmm. You're not going to get there very efficiently. You're going to have to constantly fill up the gas tank. Mm-hmm. It's like singing and leaking a lot of loose air along the way, like you're saying. It's like there's still a great deal more efficiency that can be maintained technically. And like you said, that will probably result in a larger sound, a more free sound,
But the point is that like the larger sound hopefully is a byproduct, not the goal.
Exactly.
If you're making the larger sound is the goal, then you're probably doing it through muscular effort or
where it shouldn't be that.
And put your singer's name in a half. Like that's so to be able to allow instead of make and get there in, like you said, an efficient way, I remember I told you one of my friends was talking. This is a girl, Trish McCaffrey. She's a voice teacher in New York, and she was
Of
telling
course, yeah, very well known
yeah,
teacher in
she
New
was
York
telling
City.
a friend, you're just blowing air, and she couldn't understand what Trish was trying to say. But I think she was not approximating her vocal folds together.
Right, right.
Because if you don't do it, it sounds healthy and safe. And if you put it in, I mean, this is like where the rubber meets the road. This is probably what you're trying to gently coax out of your students all the time is, trust me, you can sing on the breath. You can sing with your vocal folds completely firing all the way from front to back.
Yeah.
And it's not gonna hurt, and it's not tension.
Well, you know what's funny? I mean, and I remember the first time I ever came to light with this was with Dr. McDonald, James McDonald at IU. He said something like, well, if you're going to try to call someone's attention from like 100 yards away, and the whole thing of like, hey, you're trying to call, you don't have to think about, you don't usually think about that. And you certainly wouldn't go, hey, it's like, it's like, how would you get someone's attention that's like way over there?
But I think a lot of people think, oh, to be a singer, no, baby, not now. I'm sorry. No, baby. Sorry, I'm doing.
It's okay.
But I think a lot of people, I see it a lot in a lot of my kids, when I work with them, they think singing shouldn't be effortless. It shouldn't be that. It should be work. Not just yet, baby.
Right. It's one of those things that doesn't sound like it would be effortless.
It's
when you watch someone do it,
And that's the thing but they think that
work.
the effort should be in a way of like they have to muscle it. And it's like, guys, no. I call singing exaggerated speaking. Everything I'm doing with you right now is just on a bigger level.
Yeah.
But nothing is pushed, nothing is forced. No, right now. But and that's why I try to get to the kids. It's like, you know what? It's just the process and trusting that your body already is capable of doing it. But a lot of people are like, no, it's got to be, I got to muscle it. And it's like, no, you're fighting it's trying to put like a V12 into a bug. It doesn't fit. You're putting that car is built that way. You're trying to put something that it doesn't work.
Right.
Your body's built, it already has it.
It was like when Jeff and I were teaching ourselves how to play golf when we were graduate students at Indiana. And if you didn't know any better, you might go up there and try to knock the living crap out of the golf ball to get it to go far. And you quickly realized, or at least we did, that, oh, when you just swing and you keep your eye on the ball and you don't try to hit it far, it actually goes a lot farther than you would if you tried to knock the crap out of it.
There's a lot of psychology with singing, because when we were doing that, I was reading the inner game of golf, and there's the inner game of music, the inner game of tennis.
That whole thing about self one versus self two.
Yeah, and that's where I'm talking about, like Jeff and Half, and just allowing your instrument to be coordinated. But having good ears is kind of a blessing and a curse. I remember the coach at IU, Gary Arvin, was like, well, if Jeff could only sing as well as he can hear other people sing, I'm like, well, yeah. That's the problem, is that it's not as easy to put into your own instrument as what you're hearing from others.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's a lot easier said than done, that whole
It is, which is why we need voice teachers. We need people to kind of almost like, I think sometimes voice teachers are almost like psychologists, where they can say like, no, this is allowed, but no, that's too much. Now,
well, good ones are. Otherwise, they cause lots of confusion.
Yeah, there's
chaos.
A very much like the trust, to where you've got to be able to go fully and fail fully with whatever you're working on, so then you can reel it back. Sometimes if you're doing these techniques and you're trying to allude to like something, you're not like this gas tank thing, you're trying to let someone break a mental block, so then they can do something different that they haven't even done themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So obviously, if you're doing it the same, then, or is this a concert or is this a voice lesson? Because if I'm
to be the same every time.
If you don't think that you're able to get better than where you are now, what are we doing?
So where are you starting? Are you premiering with Scala, or are we doing a voice lesson?
So, I mean, speaking of Stephen Smith, somebody asked him one time, what does a singer need to get into your studio? How does a singer need to get into your studio? And his answer was, I'm paraphrasing, but something along the lines of, they need to want to learn how to sing better, and they need to trust that I will be able to help them do that. And it's like, it's so clear. It's like, yeah, as long as you want to get better as a singer and that you trust that I can help you do that, then let's go. Let's get to work.
Then it's a joy. It's a voyage of discovery. And, good teachers learn from their students.
That's exactly right.
That's true. You learn from your students. You learn from working with your students how to. I think I've learned to sing better because, and it was like, I remember Dolores said when she started singing, her teacher said, you're going to learn to teach voice lessons because you're going to learn you're going to learn to understand your technique better. And that's the same thing I've learned, is because if I have to explain it in a way to my kids to make them understand,
you have to defend yourself.
And going back to what my one teacher said, you're a tree. Why would she say she's a tree? And I tell my kids, okay, imagine you have to plant your feet in a way and energize through your entire body, not muscle the rib, the rib cage and the diaphragm. You do it. You got to energize through the body. The whole body is going to help you make sure that you're not muscling everything.
Look at you making better sense out of your tree analogy that you never understood.
But I didn't know that until years later, what she was trying to explain. She just said, you're free. And now I'm like, why is she saying it? And I go, but I'm not going to do and I loved her. She was a great teacher, but I was like, my goal is every day I'm like, I want to make sure my kids understand what I'm saying to them, that I'm not just throwing something at them, that they understand there's a purpose for this and you're going to discover it. And then the best thing is when you have a kid and they discover it and they're like, and that's the minute I know they're owning it. They're owning their technique. They're not telling me, they're owning what they want to know. And that makes me really happy.
Yeah, that's amazing. I've just been seeing in the chat, Gabe Gonzalez says, hola, amigos. Such a cool guy. Kelly Gephardt, who is a great friend of mine, mentioned opera and all arts, education and outreach programs are so important.
Absolutely.
And then just posted Imre Paulo says, great seeing you guys.
Oh my goodness, Imre is cool.
How many times did we have the incredible honor of singing with that man?
Yeah, that was always awesome. And
speaking of that Elixir of Love, he was the conductor of that.
Yeah, I'm about to say you and I got to do quite a few different. We were double cast with Imre a couple times. And that was just we were double cast as Marullo and Rigoletto with him. We were double cast as Sharpless and Madame Butterfly with Maestro Paolo. Yeah.
And Belcore and L'Elisir. In fact, so tomorrow, I hope everybody is able to tune in to the Listening Lab with Brian Email and myself. We're going to talk about the Victoria de Los Angeles and the UC Bierling Mario Sereni recording of Butterfly. And every time I do Butterfly, it's a role that I've sung, Sharpless is a role that I've sung more than any other. And I always am reminded of Maestro Paolo saying, the tenor says, milk punch whiskey. And the orchestra immediately following goes, bum, ba-da-da. And Paolo looks right at me one time. He goes, Coca-Cola.
I got a Paolo story because I remember, I won't say who the singer was, but it was a Parpignol. And that's always a part that it's easy to come back to that part when you're staging all the,
in Act Two of La Boheme.
Yeah, so it's whenever you're doing the staging, you end up going back to that piece a lot, just because it's like it's a natural stop in that scene. So Paolo we had one of those tenors who wanted to make the most out of that role. So
a tenor who wanted to make the most out of Parpignol. Can you imagine?
Never happened.
Never happened.
So every time he would go back, it would just get longer and longer. Yeah, and this is just like an afternoon rehearsal in some, So
it's the Wednesday Warrior. It's like the Wednesday Warrior in football, in high school.
Yeah,
football,
so Paulo is, he's finally, you can tell he's getting sick of it more and more. So he's finally like, from your aria.
Parpignol's aria. That's the best.
Just the way he said it. From your aria.
Oh my
Okay.
God.
It was,
That's amazing.
it was
Okay.
great. I love that.
So the plane is just arriving, so I think we're going to start boarding real soon.
Hey, listen,
So
this is perfect
gonna have to
timing.
go, baby.
We'll sign off. I'm so glad that you both could be here for the duration. Tosh from MAF, from Midland Air Force. What is the Midland Airfield? I knew it was
They don't have
something.
their own Air Force yet.
Airport
They
and
don't-
International Space Station, I believe it's what it's called. So
They do have a great museum of flight out there in
They
Midland.
do.
It's
Their
awesome.
petroleum museum is amazing too.
Oh, yeah.
We're in the Permian Basin. Hello. So,
There you go.
Oh,
There you go. Well, thank you both so much for being here. We've had some great reflections on experiences we've all shared together, and I really appreciate your insight into this. And yeah. All right. Well, we'll see you soon, and safe flight, safe travel home, Natasha, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, Weston.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thanks, everybody.
Love you,
Bye.
honey.
Bye.
Bye.